Most of us probably hope that if we were in a situation where we were in danger, somebody around us would try to do something to help us out. What we probably wouldn't expect would be for our hero to come in the form of a tiny little girl. When the mom in this story became overcome with exhaustion and fell asleep at the wheel, she found herself in an extremely dangerous situation. The only one there to save her was her 5-year-old daughter. Angela Szymanski of Calgary, Canada, was traveling in her family's van with her 5-year-old daughter Lexi and her 4-month-old son Peter. She was incredibly tired as her eyelids became heavier and heavier. She realized that she would need to pull over to the next rest stop and take a break. Unfortunately, she was never able to make it to that rest stop. Her eyes closed, and in a second, she realized that she had made a horrible mistake. It took her only a moment to lose control of the vehicle. Everything happened so fast that she didn't have time to scream. She could only think of her 2 precious children lying asleep in the back. The car swerved over a steep, rocky embankment and plummeted 40 feet down. The fall was enough to knock Angela unconscious. She was badly injured, with her back broken in multiple places, and with every second that passed by, she was drawing closer and closer to death. Lexi's baby brother was screaming, and her mother wasn't responding. It was clearly a very scary and dangerous situation. Most children her age would have been absolutely terrified, but if Lexi was scared, she didn't let it show. Instead, she jumped into action. Despite typically needing help from a parent to remove her car seat harness, the little girl was somehow able to free herself from the seat and got out of the vehicle. She knew what she had to do to save her family. Without even any shoes but plenty of determination, Lexi began to climb 40 feet up the rough, rocky terrain. Her feet were scratched up and every step was brutally painful. She was terrified and kept picturing her mom's unconscious face. Was her mom going to die? The thought caused tears to stream down her face, but she kept going until she reached the highway. When she got there, she began desperately waving down cars, hoping that someone would stop. A couple by the name of Lonnie and Jeremiah Jurek, who were driving by, were stunned when they saw the tiny, blonde-haired girl standing on the side of the road, screaming and gesturing for help. She was angry because cars kept passing by her, ignoring her. Luckily, the couple quickly pulled over and she explained what happened. The couple called for help immediately. When the rescue team arrived, they found it far more difficult than Lexi had to cross the rocky embankment and reach the vehicle. In fact, they had to use ropes to keep it from falling. Not only was this area very steep and treacherous, but it was wooded and not visible from the highway. There were sticks and debris covering the ground. When they finally got to Angela, they discovered that her heart had stopped. Things didn't look good. Miraculously, the medics had gotten there just in time. They were able to resuscitate Angela and bring her back to life. Once the family was brought to the hospital, Angela had to undergo surgery due to internal bleeding. She even had to have some organs removed. It quickly became clear that baby Peter was also in rough shape. He had to have emergency surgery to relieve bleeding on his tiny brain, but thanks to his sister and her quick thinking, he received treatment in time and his life was spared. As for Lexi, she somehow walked away from the major accident with just some minor scratches. For a long time, Angela was unable to walk and was confined to a wheelchair. In time, she was able to walk again with the help of a cane. She and her son spent 19 days in the hospital recovering from their injuries. Still, this was a small chance to pay to have a second chance at life. This is something that Angela has never taken for granted. During an interview, Angela tearfully explained that every time she looks at her young daughter, she is reminded that Lexi is the only reason that she and her son are alive and their family is whole. To this day, Angela doesn't understand how Lexi managed to get out of her car seat without help. It's crazy. I can only remember 1 or 2 times where she got out of her 5-point harness previously. She somehow got out, adrenaline or whatever, and barefoot hiked up the embankment, she said. Lexi's father, Travis, is not only very proud of her, but grateful beyond words that she managed to save his wife and son. When he first learned that it was his 5-year-old daughter that had saved the day, he was overcome by emotion.
Started bawling pretty much, like I couldn't believe what she had done.
Just as the family is grateful for Lexi's quick action, they are also grateful for Jeremiah and Lonnie, who cared enough to stop and help when so many other drivers just passed by the little girl without second thought. In a very tearful interaction, the two families were able to reunite in person. They embraced, and Angela took the opportunity to thank them in person for choosing to stop and pull over that fateful day. If they hadn't, this story might have a far more horrific ending. The story of Lexi's bravery shocked the community and touched many. Lots of people wanted to pitch in help for the family to pay their extensive medical bills. A GoFundMe was started for them, and the donations began pouring in. Before long, it had raised over $19,000. The Royal Canadian Humane Association was also very impressed by Lexi's courage. They decided that it warranted special recognition. The association ended up awarding her a shiny bronze medal for bravery. The little girl wore a sparkly orange dress at that special ceremony. Lexi hasn't allowed the newfound fame to get to her head, although she does look forward to taking her medal to school for show and tell. She just doesn't know what it means. She's just 5 years old and happy to be home and playing with her dog and her ducks, her mother said. Lexi's father, Travis, says that there is a special lesson to be learned from this story. As it turns out, Lexi's parents had just talked to her about what to do in case of an emergency, only months before the accident. He told reporters that this is something that all parents should do, even when their kids are still young. You never know what sort of dangerous situation that you could find yourself in. Prepare your kids, he said. Don't try and shelter them from anything. It's impressive what they can do and what they retain from the little bit of information that you give them.